Today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 tips for managing PCOS with your diet. Let's get started. At this point, there is certainly not a cure for it, but there are ways that you can practically manage the condition through your nutrition. So I'm going to talk about that today. Hey, what's up YouTube? Christine with Gauge Girl Training here, an online meal planning and coaching service. I'm a food scientist and chemical engineer, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 tips for managing PCOS with your diet. So let's get started. So I want to thank everybody for all of your comments on the first video I did on PCOS, which is the first time I've been talking about this condition on YouTube. So again, PCOS is polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is a condition where multiple cysts occur in the ovaries as a result of hormonal imbalances. And I actually have decided to do an entire series on this subject, and I actually want to dedicate this series to somebody very near and dear to my heart. So this is dedicated to my cousin, and she knows who she is. I know she's watching, and she was diagnosed with this condition in her 20s, and as a result of that is having some struggles with health. And I definitely I don't have PCOS, but for those of you who struggle with it, I just want to send my love and positive vibes out to you guys that this is a very serious condition, but to not lose hope, because at this point there is certainly not a cure for it, but there are ways that you can practically manage the condition through your nutrition. So I'm going to talk about that today. So the first thing we're going to talk about when it comes to managing PCOS is tip number 1 is managing your insulin. What do I mean by managing your insulin? There is anecdotal correlations between high insulin levels and excessively high androgens and testosterone in women who have this condition. They are not directly correlated, but there is some thought in the literature out there that says that higher testosterone, higher androgen content in women tends to be related to higher levels of insulin, but this has not been clinically proven. However, if this is one way that we can help manage that condition, we certainly will. So what does it mean when you have high insulin levels? Insulin is a hormone that is released by the pancreas, and its job is to shuttle available glucose in the blood into the cells for use of energy. And managing your insulin, you can certainly make improvements in this condition. So specifically, look at the last video where I talked in a little bit more detail about insulin resistance and PCOS. Specifically, this can be managed by going on a higher fat, lower carb protocol as well as a ketogenic protocol. So that is tip number 1. Number 2, the second way that I suggest you manage PCOS is to take a look at intermittent fasting. Now, the premise of intermittent fasting is where you have specific periods where you go without eating and periods where you eat. Now, the fasting windows is what's crucial for women who have PCOS. The reason is by minimizing your feeding window, you can actually minimize the amount of insulin spikes your body experiences in a 24-hour period. So let's say you wake up at 5 a.m. and you eat something right away, but you don't end up going to bed until 10:30. Your body is going to be spiking your blood sugar, therefore releasing insulin throughout the day. If you minimize the window with which you eat, you will have fewer insulin spikes, therefore not having to deal with that condition and allowing your body to burn fat longer as a result. The most common intermittent fast I recommend is a 16-8. However, you don't have to do this every single day. Check out my other video on intermittent fasting, and I also have another video on intermittent fasting and your hormones. So take a look at that. But I do suggest trying intermittent fasting to help manage this condition. Tip number 3 is to get enough fiber. So whenever you are looking at carbohydrates, just because you're on low carb or even just because you're on keto, you can still get fiber. Why is fiber so important for women who have this condition? It's important because fiber helps to stabilize your insulin levels. Again, it all comes back to managing insulin, and it actually helps to slow and reduce the rate of release of glucose into the bloodstream. So how much fiber should you be getting? I recommend you get between 20 and 30 grams of fiber per day. You can certainly go a little bit higher, but in the 20 to 30 grams of fiber per day is highly recommended. I also suggest that you get your fiber from vegetables and fruit as opposed to starchy carbs. Now, number 4, I'm going to suggest supplementation. Now, when I say supplementation, there are some supplements that you should avoid, and there are some supplements that you should definitely lean in towards. So things that can certainly help, I definitely recommend that you look into non-GMO phytoestrogen supplementation. This can definitely help to naturally rebalance out your hormones. That's one way. Another thing is I encourage you guys to avoid any testosterone boosting supplements. So any of you guys who are taking some amino acid blends, some fat burners, some pre-workouts, carefully read those labels. Make sure there is no DHEA in that. Again, make sure there is no DHEA, make sure there is no andro, and no testosterone boosters. Now, DHEA is banned, and if you actually take anywhere between 50 and 100 milligrams of DHEA per day, it will actually boost your testosterone. This is something you want to stay away from. It is banned, but you do need to be careful because there are some supplement companies who will put it in there in creative ways because it can help boost muscle mass. And if you are taking supplements that were actually designed and intended for men to use, they may not be right for you. So just be very careful with the types of supplements you use. Again, I do suggest looking at some non-GMO phytoestrogens as well as avoiding any testosterone boosters that include andro and or DHEA. And last but not least, tip number 5 is to not go too low in fat. I've recently had a client who has been a little bit way too low in fat, and unfortunately as a result there is a lot of hormonal imbalances that happen when you go too low in fat. And under the conditions of PCOS, this is definitely a condition you don't want to get into. I suggest supplementing with omega-9 and omega-3 fatty acids, and I'm going to talk more about the importance of fat in hormonal balancing. I have so many more videos for you guys, so much more to say, but I hope you guys enjoyed these 5 tips and stay tuned for more content on this subject. Take care and have a great day.